So you have gout and you want answers? Let's rock and roll. Firstly, if you want to solve the gout problem, you have to understand that this is a systemic illness. And if gout was like a sliver in your finger, we would have had the solution to this issue a long time ago. Understand at the heart of this is fructose uric acid metabolism, and gout is one possible outcome or consequence of the hyperactivation of that pathway, along with many other metabolic illnesses that we've all heard about in the news. There is kidney disease, diabetes, fatty liver disease, obesity, Alzheimer's, cardiovascular disease, and also sugar addiction. Secondly, to drive home this fact, understand that 74% of gout sufferers are hypertensive. That means that they have high blood pressure. 71% suffer from chronic kidney disease. 53% are obese. A full quarter of gout sufferers suffer from type 2 diabetes. 14% of gout sufferers also suffer heart attacks, and a full 10% suffer strokes. So for a gout sufferer, the probability that you are also not suffering from another chronic disease is very small. There are 43 million people walking around that are hyperuricemic in the United States. Hyperuricemic means high uric acid. And the one thing that the medical community all can agree on is that high uric acid is driving gout. So the question is, what is the metabolic condition that is driving gout? On this slide, I am showing you two metabolic pathways that are interconnected and integrated in the cell. On the left side in gray is glycolysis. This pathway takes incoming glucose and converts that glucose into the storage form of glucose called glycogen. It converts the incoming glucose into the energy currency called ATP. This pathway delivers chemical compounds to the mitochondria, whose job it is to produce and provide to the cell the majority of the ATP. And finally, it will divert glucose when it arrives in surplus into fat production. You can see that the gray pathway, glycolysis, is interconnected to fructose uric acid pathway in red by an additional pathway which is called polyol. Under conditions that I'm going to call normal, meaning that somebody sits down and they eat a meal which is not hyperglycemic, meaning it doesn't have big loads of glucose, there is no added sugar, and there is no alcohol involved in the incoming calories. In that case, glycolysis works, and I'm going to use this word again, in a normal way. So the main thing is we're going to get the production of ATP out of it. We're going to store some of the glucose as glycogen, and the other intermediates that are produced at the end of the pathway will enter the mitochondria, where those substances will be converted through a number of reactions into a large number of ATP molecules, and we may also store some of the glucose as incoming fat. Under the standard American regime, in the way that most Americans eat, the standard American meal, and for this presentation I'm going to focus on the evening meal, which may also involve alcohol. In this case, that meal will be hyperglycemic, meaning that there is going to be a high glucose load. If some of the food that is being eaten is processed, there's also going to be added sugars coming in, and the issue with this is that we will be delivering fructose directly into the cell, and then if the individual is drinking alcohol, we have arriving at the liver what I call the deadly triad. We have hyperglycemia, high glucose, we have incoming fructose, and we have alcohol. So the consequence of this type of meal, or the consequence of hyperactivating these metabolic pathways, will be the activation of fructose uric acid metabolism, which will cause a steep decline in the total ATP that's in the cell, also the phosphate, with an acute sudden rise in uric acid, which drives systemic inflammation, disruption of the nitric oxide pathway, which downstream drives cardiovascular disease, and there is a reprogramming of the cell to produce and store fat. So there are actually 4 drivers of high uric acid. The first is hyperglycemia, followed by added sugars, which include fructose, alcohol, and another factor that I didn't speak about yet, which has to do with hypoxia, low oxygen conditions, which also activate these pathways. The situation with hypoxia happens with sleep disorders, the main one being sleep apnea. So let's talk answers to gout. One caveat: this is a lifestyle issue, which means that we are going to address changing the way that we eat and potentially the way that we sleep. And therefore, the remission of gout takes time. This is not a sliver in the finger issue. So the most obvious road to recovery is to stop eating meals which are hyperglycemic, to eliminate added sugar, and either eliminate or decrease substantially the amount of alcohol we're drinking, and then lastly, getting sleep tested to find out if you suffer from sleep apnea so that you can get that condition treated and eliminate the nightly hypoxic event. We know from the science that the best kind of diet to put gout in remission, extending all the way back to the 1850s, is a whole, real food diet with no processed food. That also includes a range of different meats. If you are also suffering from one of the comorbidities that I talked about, besides the gout, like chronic kidney disease, obesity, type 2 diabetes, cardiovascular disease, and so on, then you are going to want to decrease the carbs down to no more than 50 grams of total carbs per day. Feedback from clients that I have coached and from comments that I get on my YouTube channel, most people that institute the change that I'm talking about here have seen relief from their gout. At this point, I have published many videos about the nuances of making this lifestyle change to put your gout in remission, and I have linked those videos here. I also have started to offer the most comprehensive program in gout remission in the United States, and you can get more information about that program at www.drpetesgoutintensive.com. So to finish, if you suffer from gout, you have to eliminate the main drivers: the hyperglycemia, the added fructose, alcohol, and you need to be sleep tested. This is literally the first step before thinking about anything else. If you enjoyed this presentation today, please hit the subscription button and the bell next to it so you know the next time that I release a video.